Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about somebody that is more than just a little bit famous right now, and her name is Caitlyn Jenner, formerly known as Bruce Jenner, the athlete that had won the decathlon in the 1976 Olympics. Well, anyway, first thing I want to talk about with her chart is that she has the sun and rising sign both in Scorpio, and this indicates often no duplicity. Really, what you see is what you get. The outer self is merged with the inner self, and this can give strong Scorpio characteristics, of course, which includes an indomitable spirit, somebody that has inordinate willpower, very resilient, resolute, incisive, and can be very enamored with mysteries. Now, the next thing, okay, she has the moon in Aquarius. Now, this can give an eccentric side to Caitlyn, and the emotional needs may include friends, computers, electronics, things of humanitarian nature, innovation, and the next thing I want to look at is the pictorial look of the chart. Now, 6 of the 10 planets are above the horizon, which is houses 7 through 12. And because of this, she may be slightly more introverted as opposed, slightly more extroverted as opposed to introverted, a little bit more optimism than pessimism, and a little slightly more objective than subjective, and maybe more public oriented as opposed to being private. Now, 9 of the 10 planets are on the left side of the chart, and this could suggest very strong self-reliance and independence, very self-motivated, and generally will not require others to give her a push or to get things started, and this could be very self-motivated. Now, and it could also indicate a need to do things more independently as opposed as doing things where she would be collaborating with others. Now, the majority of the major influences are in fixed signs, and this could show the inordinate willpower, tenacity, persistence, and determination, but on the negative side could be very willful, intractable, intransigent, and it really may rely more on others to make compromises as opposed to herself. Now, what's interesting is there is an equal distribution of major influences in the chart. And when I talk about major influences, my perception of that are the 10 planets, the MC, and the ascendant. And when you have the even distribution, there was 3 in fire, 3 major influences in air, 3 major influences in water, and 3 major influences in the earth element. And this could indicate a strong balance of communication, which is air, pragmatism, which is the earth element, intuition and insight, which is the water, and the exuberance and passionate side, which is the fire. Now, the final chart signature was because of the even distribution in the elements, was a 4-way tie between all fixed signs. But I'm going to give the tiebreaker to Scorpio because the sun and ascendant were in it, and and this could really strongly accentuate Scorpio characteristics. In a final chart signature is supposed to give an overall tone or flavor to the natal chart, but at least in my opinion, it doesn't supersede the sun, moon, or ascendant. But in this case, it's the same sign as the sun and the ascendant, so this could accentuate those Scorpio characteristics. Now, with Scorpio rising, there's 2 chart rulers, and the 2 chart rulers are both posited in the 10th house in her chart. Now, Scorpio rising energy, this emotional intensity, therefore, may be strongly injected into things connected with career, notoriety, status, and recognition. And with Mars being one of the planets, it's no surprise that sports figured prominently in this, and Pluto is the other one. And obviously a very strong need perhaps for recognition and the career in public image obviously figured prominently in her in her life. Now, the preponderance of planets are in the fourth quadrant, and the fourth quadrant of the horoscope is the 10th, 11th, and 12th house. Now, this could emphasize selflessness, humanitarianism, doing things more for collective efforts. It's more about group-oriented activities as opposed to things connected with self-aggrandizement or things that are egocentric, more for the group. It could be a person that might be like an environmentalist doing things to help others strongly, or things that can impact things of more of a global nature. So, and anyway, the next thing is, okay, she has the sun in the first house conjunct the ascendant. Now, the sun in the first house can give a person very strong endurance and vitality and a need to be in the spotlight in some capacity. Now, the conjunction to the ascendant can make this even more apparent to others on a first impression. Now, she has Mercury in accidental detriment in the 12th house. Now, this could indicate some reluctance regarding communication, perhaps some inhibition here to some degree. Could also make one very introspective and do much studying in private and seclusion. And interestingly enough, this is also the ruler of her 8th house, and the 8th house, as most of you know, is associated with sex. So this was part of her, that the transgender thing, maybe why it was so being so secretive for such a period of time. Now, Neptune is in the 12th house. Now, this could give a person confusing, confounding dreams. There might be some confusion and chaos in the person's private life. The imagination might be vivid in seclusion. There may be strong self-sacrifice in as far as helping those less fortunate, such as the oppressed, the homeless, the impoverished, the people that are hungry and don't have many things in their life. It could also give a very strong intuition, because Neptune is in its accidental dignity, being posited in the 12th house. Now, another thing is that Mercury conjuncts Neptune, and this could indicate somebody whose thoughts may be a little bit sometimes convoluted or chaotic, but may be good at fiction, fantasy writing. This could be a person, I'll look at my notes momentarily, people, a person that has can really be good, not just at fiction, fantasy writing, but perhaps even expressing thoughts connected with the metaphysical and spirituality. It could indicate much ambivalence and ambiguity, though, as far as this goes. Now, another thing I thought was interesting, she has a yod configuration. This is very intriguing. Now, in the yod configuration in her natal chart, this involves Mars in Virgo in the 10th house, sextiling Uranus in Cancer in the 9th house, and these two planets make an inconjunct to the moon in Aquarius in the 3rd house, therefore forming a yod configuration. Now, the moon in Aquarius in the 3rd house is the apex point, and that's the action position of the yod. And when I look at this, what you have to see is that the energy of that sextile can be incorporated into the apex position, which is the moon in Aquarius in the 3rd. Now, Mars sextile Uranus can give unusual athletic ability and prowess. And what's interesting is that moon being posited in the 3rd house, the moon in the 3rd can indicate emotional communication. Now, perhaps Caitlyn is therefore able to maybe communicate her achievement in this manner, and by doing so maybe inspire others through this communication. And it may be something where it's just very inspirational to others, and this could indicate monumental achievement if the person can work through the tension and the exasperation that's connected with the inconjuncts of the yod configuration. In this case, Mars inconjuncts the moon, and which can indicate perhaps a conflict or adjustment connected with where the aggressive energy is going, which is Mars, and the emotional needs, which is the moon. And the moon in conjunct Uranus can show there may be that need for that adjustment, or there might be a conflict between the emotional needs and the need for freedom and independence. And once the person can work through those, there could be much accomplishment connected with the yod position. And another way of looking at her yod configuration I thought was interesting is that Mars is also the planet associated with sex. And Uranus is kind of that unusual planet, that oblique planet, and that connected with freedom and independence. And then you have the moon in the third, which is the apex point. Now, by incorporating perhaps the what might be construed as something that might be different as far as sexuality goes, and being able to incorporate those qualities of Mars and Uranus and put them into that third house, into communication. Well, this could show that as far as Caitlyn Jenner goes, in her perception, at least, that she might inspire others that are transgenders to come out and be more open about this, and in that sense can indicate, I guess you could say, that prodigious achievement, at least from her vantage point, in terms of maybe inspiring others to do this, and which would be like that freedom of expression. Freedom, moon in Aquarius, could be strongly about that, and the expression as far as communication goes is the third house, and the moon in Aquarius is in the third house and of communication. So I just thought that was interesting. And anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for the natal chart of Caitlyn Jenner. And stay tuned next time, where I'll be continuing my series of the part of fortune in the signs. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone. Because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.